Hey everyone, Kara Gott-Warner here, and I want to welcome you all to another edition of Power Pearls Unplugged on this Friday afternoon. So I'm really excited that you could join me. I am thrilled to start talking about a new topic that, well, it's something I've talked about before, but I'm putting on my editor's hat today, and we're going to be talking about the 5 big questions that you should be asking yourself before you design a knitting pattern or a crochet pattern. So these principles can be applied to many different pattern writing crafts. So I want to, again, welcome to Power Pearls Unplugged, and this is technically the video edition of Power Pearls podcast. And so, as I said just a moment ago, I'm going to be putting on my editor's hat and just kind of I'll be, I guess, paying forward a lot of what I've learned over the past several years as an editor so that you can avoid frustration. So hopefully I'm going to save you some time today with that. So my name is Kara Gott-Warner for anyone joining me that's just popping in, and I empower knitters, crocheters, and newbie craftpreneurs to live a holistically integrated creative lifestyle. So whether you want to start a business or just create more margin in your life for knitting, crochet, those things that we love to make, I'm here to help make that happen. So so before we jump into those 5 things, well, maybe I see that some of you guys are still kind of popping in. And so let me just kind of give you a quick synopsis of the 5 things that we're going to be talking about. These 5 questions, I should say, that you should be asking yourself before you dive into the knitting pattern creation or the handwriting pattern. So who is it for? So we'll go through that. And then also what are my strengths exactly? So what do I like to do? What don't I like to do? Why? So, why are you making this pattern? So if it's for a magazine, are you following the guidelines? And communication. Are you communicating this accurately to the customer? And if you are a designer, your customer is the editor. So it's really shifting gears to kind of think, who is my customer? I'm not really sure. But when you ask the questions, that can become very clear. And then also swatch. This is an underrated, often thought of as simplistic process. So we're going to talk about the reasons for swatching. And then I'm going to share some more newsy things and what's happening on the podcast, and also how you can get your hands on a free guide that I offer. It's called the 8 Essential Steps to Creating a Killer Design Proposal. And I know that some of you watching, you may have already had, or you may have a copy of that, but if not, you can get yourself a copy, and I will share how you can get one at the very end of this video. So before I jump into these 5 questions that you need to be asking yourself, I'd like to ask you all to introduce yourself. And so jump into the comments, let me know where you are watching from, and if you're on the designing path, or, this is of interest to you, if you're just starting, you're right at the beginning of the path, I want to hear that. I want you to tell me that. Are you right at the beginning? Are you at the middle? Or are you kind of, moving down that path? You've been designing, you've been pattern writing, but, you're open-minded, and you know that it's always good to hone your skills. So we have Jana in the room. Jana, nice to see you today. And then we have Elisa. Hey, Elisa, this is great. So I'm glad you're here, Elisa, because, and actually both of you guys that have jumped in to say you're here. It's just nice to know that I know, Elisa, you are starting. You're just starting. You're getting your feet wet, and you've been following along on all the Stitchucation workshop that I was conducting the month of January. Okay, so if you guys are ready, we're going to jump in. Okay, I'm guessing you are. You guys ready? Thumbs up. Yes. Okay, good. So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to go through these 5 big questions that you should be asking yourself. Okay, the first one. Okay, so the first one is, who is it for? So are you telling the story? Are you telling the story of of what your pattern is all about? So you have to know who your customer is. And in this particular case, because you are writing, let's just say I'm putting on my editor's hat. So you could be writing a pattern for a magazine, or you could be developing a pattern for your indie collection. So it's both of those things, and on these questions definitely applies. So don't feel like, it's only for people wanting to design for magazines. No. Hey, Megan, nice to see you. And by the way, you guys, Megan is on the podcast this week, fresh on the pod, as I like to say in social media, when a new episode comes out. So I'll talk about that at the end. I have some newsy things that I'll chat about, and that's one of those newsy things. So we want to know, who is it for? If you're working for a magazine, have you been following the themes? Have you been following the guidelines? Is this design for someone like you, for example? And I just wanted to point out that I talk to a lot of different designers who say that they design for themselves before they write a pattern because it's more authentic and they're more connected to it, and then it makes it more wearable. So sometimes, you might forget, who is it for? If it's not for me, then who is it for? Maybe you're designing, for a certain size, like maybe a plus size kind of demographic. And then you just have to really kind of hone into what it is that magazine, or what it is that you're trying to achieve with your own collection. So some of you guys are jumping in here to say where you're viewing from. So we have, my finger is like sort of showing up now in the camera, which is really kind of odd because I didn't do that before, but because you guys couldn't see me doing this. So Jana is from Birmingham, Alabama, and Jana's in the beginning stages of getting into designing. Also, the video keeps pausing and skipping ahead in small chunks, like the signal is getting weak. I guess weak is what you said. Yeah. Yikes. Yeah, I know. I see that. It's saying that the connection is weak on my end as well. So I am, unfortunately, wow. I guess I'm just going to try to keep going because there's really not too much that I can do right now unless I actually leave the room, because I'm noticing that there's not a whole bunch of you guys in the room right now, and I know that happens when my connection is weak. And I can see right now that it says my connection is weak, and then it comes back, and then it's better. So I'm wondering if I should. How is that now, Jana? I'm just curious. Is it okay if you can somehow still see me arriving late from Ohio? Hey, yo, how are you? So if you guys could let me know. I'm just going to keep pushing through, because if I shut down this video, then I have to start over, and I don't know if that's going to be a good idea, you guys. I don't know. So it's better, says Elisa. Yay. All right. So we were talking, I just dropped the thing that I wanted to show you later, but I can always pick that up. So starting back with the why. Okay, so what is the why behind your pattern? Who is it for? Fancy stitches mean nothing if nobody wants to wear it. So that's a really important thing to recognize. So asking yourself always why. And once you have this answer, this why behind your pattern, whether it's for your indie collection or a magazine, then everything else emerges from there. All the ideas, come together, and then also you're more connected. You have a more of an emotional bond, if you will, to that pattern, and then you're able to actually call it something else besides saying it's a blue sweater, because editors really like to see a vision, a story behind your design, because at the end of the day, editors are creating they're creating a story in the magazine. Okay, so the next one is strengths. What? So it's the what. We're going to go into the what now. All right. So what are my strengths? Okay, that's a pretty easy, straightforward question. What do you like to do? I'm reading from my tablet because I have all these really juicy questions that I didn't want to forget to ask you guys. So what do I like to do and what don't I like to do? And then I said, outsource the rest. And as you become a more experienced designer, you'll realize that you can do that. You can outsource your tech editing and, maybe your schematic creation So that's something that you can definitely do. If you don't like, so if you're starting out with your designing for magazines, getting ready to send in proposals, or designing for your indie collection, you want to ask your question, do I really want to design garments, or am I ready? Because magazines are always going to ask you for multiple sizes, at least 3 sizes, at least. Creative knitting asks for about 4 to 5 sizes per garment. So that's going to be expected. And that's the product. That's the end product. So if you're not ready to produce something, the pattern with those sizings, options, then at the end of the day, you're going to be setting yourself up for a little bit of pain, because what happens is those magazines are going to go back to you to answer those questions. I know some magazines don't, but Creative Knitting definitely does put the ball back in your court in that respect. So, and it's just a really good idea, because then you own it, you're aware of what your strengths are and what they aren't. And then also, when you are starting out, start small. Don't jump into a garment. I mean, I'm saying this for myself because I can remember as a new designer really wanting to design actually kids' clothes, but they were still garments. And I probably wasn't ready when I jumped into some of those designs. So start small, start with shawls. And by the way, we are going to be doing Stitchucation shawls, by the way. Hashtag Stitchucation shawls in April. I know I've been saying March and then I toggle back to April, but it is going to definitely be April, because I realized there are a whole lot of balls in the air that I have to kind of keep up. Okay, so the other is when you are developing your strengths, or if you are trying to understand your strengths or hone your abilities, just study, and don't go against the grain. If it's not you, then don't pursue it. And we all know this. I think we all know this. So do what feels right, and not what you think you should do. And that's a capital should. A capital should. All right, so let's move on to the why. Are you guys ready for the why? If do you have any questions so far, and hopefully my connection is still pretty good. And again, I apologize. I realize that the connection where I am at presently is not the best. So I have to kind of look into getting a wireless router of some sort that's right near my phone, or somehow hardwiring. I know Jana's in the room, and she's a little techie. So a really quick aside, my router's upstairs, and so I'm kind of like in a downstairs area, so I don't know what I can do to possibly make my connection stronger. But Jana says it's better now. It was just choppy at the beginning. Okay, so I don't know, maybe that was something on your end, or who knows. I mean, we don't want to blame each other, right? So anyway, so who is this for? We talked about that. What are my strengths? So thanks for letting me know, you guys, so I can be confident that we're broadcasting nicely. So let's jump into the why, okay? We talked about this before. We talked about the who, and then I kind of said remember your why, because you always want to remember the why from day one. So this question, so let's see. So we're going into 1, 2. The third one is the why, okay? Which maybe should have been number 1, but these are all important. So you use all of these and understand, if you apply all of them, they're really going to help push the needle for you on pattern writing. So why are you making this pattern? What is the why? Going into that again. Why would someone want to make it? Why? Why would the editor pick it? There you go. So if it's, I'm toggling back, I'm switching gears for you. Why would an editor pick your pattern? Did you follow the guidelines, like I said before? And also, are you providing more value? Are you a step ahead of the editor? Are you saying, here's blah, blah design based on one of your themes. And also, I would love to propose a tutorial. And this is what it looks like. And here are a few sample photos, and it would include X, Y, and Z. So when you're a step ahead, believe me, an editor has a lot of paperwork to go through, that if you're already presenting solutions, then you're making their life so much easier and a little bit plug and play, which I think, from my own experience as an editor, of course, this is a really great thing when a designer does this. So the why. Does it excite you? There you go. So you can fit into what the editor wants and what you what you want to, what the vision you want to project, what that vision is you want to project for your indie collection. But is that your why? Is it exciting? Is it something that you would like? So for example, in a previous episode, Amy Gunderson, I asked her what her inspiration is for designing, and she says, and this is Amy Gunderson with Universal Yarn, and she says, I design what I want to wear. And that's it. I remember in the early days, I know this sounds like a funny thing to bring up because you might say to yourself, well, of course. But back in the early days when I started designing, and this was before knitting, I was not designing knitwear, I was designing fabric cut and sew, as they call it in the garment world. I was making the craziest hats that nobody would wear. I think a lot of people were doing that back in the 90s. And then I came to this point and I was wondering, why isn't anyone buying my hats? Maybe some people were as gag gifts, but they were not realistic for, for an everyday person to just be wearing it down the street. So, the other why is, okay, so is it a wearable piece, right? I thought this would fit into the why section, because on paper it might look really, really good, but when you make it, when the sample is done, what does it look like? So if you're not familiar with garment design, and this will come with time, you'll get it, you'll understand how things drape. The more you make, the more that will reveal itself. So if you do embark on designing a garment early on paper, you start making it, you are kind of getting through, the most of it, and you're realizing that it's maybe not working out. And then in the end, you're crying maybe because you didn't swatch enough or do something simpler before you got into the more difficult thing. Because I think what happens sometimes is, and I've seen this, where designers will create something, or they'll work on their design, they'll create the sample because the sample is really important. That's something that an editor will always request in conjunction with the pattern. And then their sample might not work out, but they sometimes hope for they'll hope for the best, block it, and send it in and mail it in. And you can't make up for a poorly written pattern or a sample that's poorly made or doesn't fit right, or doesn't, if it was supposed to be tunic length and it's cropped. These are just some examples that I've come across. I'm not saying that anyone listening has run into this, but I'm like I said before, asking these questions ahead of time, thinking with the end in mind, and in the end is, of course, the garment that doesn't fit. We didn't think of the end, right? If that happened. So thinking about the beautiful drape, this beautiful design, and being honest with yourself. If I'm not ready for a garment, then don't do it. So yeah. There you go on the why. And then the fourth question to ask yourself is, will the editor / yarn company, or for your own purposes, your end consumer, your customer, will they understand the pattern if it's your consumer? Or if it's the editor, will they understand your concept when you send in the proposal? And also the same for the yarn company, because yarn companies work in a very similar fashion to publishers. And what if I was sent the proposal, right? What if I was sent my proposal? Would I understand? Would I understand it? What would I see when I receive that proposal? Like, what would I visually, would I see a beautiful garment that drapes tunic length, like I said, or is it waist length, or so on and so forth? And I'm using garments as kind of the overarching example, but this can apply to shawls. This is, of course, applying to cowls and scarves and very simple accessories. And so if you feel like you can ace that shape, that design, then you'll know how to answer these questions, or these questions will be icing on the cake, right? I mean, you'll be able to manage that. So it's just a really good practice to be in. And so number 5, let's get on with number 5, is the swatch. you guys know, if you've been watching these videos, and if you've been involved in the Stitchucation workshop lessons that I conducted for the month of January, which by the way are still in the archives. You just search Stitchucation. They're all free. They're in the archives, but you get some extras if you sponsor the show, and I can share that at the end. But it might seem simplistic to some people to just swatch, because it's a little bit beyond you and you just want to get into the designing. But most especially if you want to design, you have to swatch. And most especially if you want to create a garment, you should swatch. Because you know what? You really don't know. Well, there's so many layers, right? You don't know what you're going to get sometimes because, the yarn might not be what you were hoping for. It looks great on the ball or in the hank, but it's really important to swatch because depending on the needle size that you use, you're not going to be 100% sure until you do that. And then even that small 6x, I always encourage a 6x6 swatch, bigger than 4x4, but so you can feel it. Does it drape? Even at that small size, kind of get a feel for it. Wash it. If it's a super wash it. Do what you would normally do with that swatch if it were a finished garment, a finished cowl, a finished shawl, a finished hat even. Because for hats, of course, that's different. Do you want a slouchy hat or do you want it to be stiff? Do you want it to be more like a skull cap? So those are the things that, it'll help you when you're swatching. So, and if the yarn is not working the way you were hoping, well, you may have to just part with it. Or, for example, the editor chose the yarn. Okay, if the editor chose the yarn, then get in touch and let the editor know that it just didn't really do what you were hoping. And believe me, an editor really, really does appreciate that because the editor doesn't know what is happening with that yarn. I mean, of course, we definitely know how most of the yarns that we're using, unless it's a really new yarn to us, but we know how they behave just from all the years of doing this. So you get a feel for it. It's just like a familiarity is all it is. And so I can say that I can think of many yarns and pretty much know how it's going to work and what size needle is the best. Even if it's a worsted weight, maybe it doesn't really work on an 8, but it looks really awesome on a 9. Things like that. So those are the things that, you'll also, get to learn when you're swatching. The more you swatch, the better. Hey, Rita, nice to see you. So let's see what else. So don't feel bad. Like I said, don't feel bad about telling the editor. Don't just go with it and go with that yarn and turn in a product that is subpar, because that will create a very poor impression and your chances for getting picked for that publication will be minimal. I mean, it probably won't happen again. And let's see. So yes, swatching is not about skill and expertise when you're a knitter or a crocheter. It's about learning to see and to be an observer. And it's just, like I said, just to reiterate in a different way. In other words, as I said before, understanding the yarn, but knowing the behavior, the content of that yarn, which can, it can do those unexpected things. So swatch. Definitely make sure that you're swatching and swatching and swatching. So you guys, do you have any questions about these 5 questions that I really hope that you're going to use? And if you guys are patrons of Power Pearls podcast, these detailed questions with my show notes are going to be there. So don't worry, you can access those, print them out, put them on your wall, do whatever you want, or put them in a binder if you're designing or starting, like I said, starting out. Put those in the front of your binder and peruse those every time you set out to design a pattern. So I just want to see who's coming in, if anyone has any questions. So you guys, it's very, it's just so much fun. Elisa's here, Rita's here. Wow. So thumbs up if that was helpful. I saw some thumbs up, but give me more thumbs up and hearts. Come on, bring them in, you guys. Bring them in, you guys. So I don't know how many of you guys have received my 8-step guide. It's a free guide. I've had it for quite a while. But I haven't talked about it recently, and it's called the 8 Essential Steps to Creating a Killer Design Proposal. And you can get that by going to Power Pearls Podcast /killer design, okay, and killer design, one word. So powerpearlspodcast.com, killer design / killer design, and it's totally free. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some newsy things, all right? So newsy things before we wrap up. So on Monday, okay, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, I want to ask you right now, please share with your friends. Can you guys do that for me? Would you mind? I always forget at the beginning. I get really excited. I get wrapped up in making sure, is the broadcast, are we broadcasting, well, is it a good signal, all that stuff. So please share if you haven't shared this video right now. I would so appreciate it. Okay, so on Monday, I'm going to be doing a little video hop, actually hopping from here today to Monday. Let's just say that, because it's not exactly like a video hop. But if you guys were following along for the Creative Knitting knit along for the lace sampler that Beth designed for the, I have it down here, but of course it just fell, but I won't be able to show it to you. The spring issue of Creative Knitting magazine. And Beth is on the cover, and we did a fantastic knit along with Universal Yarn, and we did a video hop. So we went from here, and then we hopped over to the Creative Knitting page. And so Beth would love for you guys to share your finished creations, and she's going to do a little collage. So if you go to Beth Whiteside Design, if you just kind of Google, or not Google, but type in the search box here in on Facebook, and you'll find her page, and you'll probably see a post about it. But then I'm going to be lurking in the background, and I think maybe she's going to have me on the video somehow. I'm not really sure how we're going to do that, but that's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this coming Monday. Okay, and then, and so your progress, share your progress for the knit along. I'll be sharing mine too, because I'm still making my own version of a lace sampler, which is turning into a scarf, and different stitch patterns I'm playing around with. So I've gotten into the customization kind of end of the spectrum, and that's something that we encouraged you to do. So it kind of goes along with what I'm talking about today. So let's see what's going on. So on the podcast, Megan Jones, prolific, wonderful. She's on the podcast, and it's fresh on the pod, as I like to say. And she talks about her experiences at TNNA. Have any of you guys gone to TNNA? It's the National Needle Arts Trade Show, also known as, like I said, TNNA. And you can learn more about it by going to tnna.org. And she really crushed it at the show this past January. I was supposed to join her, but I couldn't make it. And she shares how she worked it, how she hustled, and how she met yarn company owners, and she really finessed it, and how she basically put together a booklet of her designs and just made it easy, handed it to them, bam, they got an idea, they could tell what she was doing. So in the 8-step guide, she's the poster child, as I like to say. So this design that is in the guide, it's just an example. It's a small example of the anatomy of a design proposal with the finished piece, a photo of the finished piece. But I have a surprise, because here it is in even bigger. Because I have just about every issue, copy, of course, of Creative Knitting magazine, and this was an SIP. I should let you know what an SIP is. I'm talking editor speak right now. Special interest issue, and this was it was spring 2013. This design was the Saphira tank, and it's by design. It's by Megan Jones. And so here are a few more photos. So here's a back shot of that. It's a twin set, so it's a cardigan and a tank. And here is the cardigan, or I should say the tank, right? That's it, the tank. Beautiful. Let me see if there's another. Yep, there's so much more. The back of this beautiful piece. We had so many different, I just made this a really big section. And look at the side of that piece. And so in Megan's submission, which is in the guide, a little example, you can see that sketch. She showed the shaping, and she even swatched what that would look like. And this was before the design was even done. And as you can see in the magazine, I used the color. I didn't change anything. I changed nothing. because she made my life so super simple. So anyway, go get that guide, and let's just see if there's another little newsy thing. Well, yes, you can sponsor the show. You can get my unedited extended conversation with Megan, because she shares all these actionable tips. You guys have to go. If you want to design, TNNA is the place to be, and she shares some really great stuff. You get to hear what it's like from the moment I press the record button on the podcast. So that's about 20-ish extra minutes that you get if you support the podcast. And you can do this for as little as $1, but the unedited episodes would be at the $3 and up level. But there are so many other reasons, because when you support the show, it helps me to continue to do all this really great stuff. And I'm really excited to join you every week. So this is something that I look forward to doing continually, and I feel like it's such a gift to have all you guys join in with me as well. So if you want to learn more about joining the community, the Power Pearls community is what I call it. Jana knows, Megan knows, Yo knows, Lisa knows, everyone watching, you guys are part of my community. My gosh, my peeps are here. So if you want to learn more, you can go to patreon.com. So it's Patreon, and it's in the video copy, okay? So patreon.com/Power Pearls podcast. And, in, let's see, a month or so, a little more than a month and a half, we'll be starting Stitchucation shawls. And so I'll be sharing so much more with you guys about how you can take part in this awesome workshop. Because, by the way, it's a little bit different than it was for the last one. These live videos will be out there for everyone to enjoy. I'll be teasing and giving some great value bombs from that workshop. But all the live mini trainings, they're trainings, they're teachings, mini trainings will happen in the Patreon members only private Facebook group. And there'll be daily prompts this time. So last time it was a weekly, so you got the video here, and it was free for everyone, plus PDF downloads. This time, videos in the members area, plus daily prompts. So it's really exciting. So about every other month, every 2 months, you're going to get these workshops if you're part of the community. So anyway, you guys, join me on Monday. Beth Whiteside Design. Meet me over there. Go to Beth's site now, page now. Find out how you can submit your progress photos for the lace sampler. And then I'll see you over there on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you guys, this has been great, and have a happy weekend, and I'll see you next week. All right? Bye.